A very good morning to you wherever you are, and welcome back to the program Good Morning Kenya. This 24th day of January, the year 2018. We want to look at the whole question of House committees amid the ongoing wrangles, especially between NASA and Jubilee allied members of Parliament. We know for sure that yesterday 4 members of Parliament were ejected out of the leadership of various committees in Parliament, led by, or let me say National Assembly, especially led by Nandi Hills Member of Parliament, Alfred Keter, who had been elected as Labour Committee Chairperson, but as of yesterday he was ejected out of that particular position, and we expect another round of voting in the next 14 days. And I had also expected James Gakuya, who is Embakasi North Member of Parliament and who had been elected as the chairperson of the Broadcasting and Library Committee, to join us this morning. Apparently, as of this morning, he did send an apology and says he's not going to make it. But we expect Mheshimiwa Odege, Tom Nyatike, Member of Parliament, to join us any time from now. But in studio with me is none other than KIMILILI, Member of Parliament, DIDMUS Barasa, who is also a member of at least 3 committees, if I'm not wrong. Karibu sana, Mheshimiwa, to the program.
Asante.
Happy to have you. Which membership are you in terms of committees in Parliament?
I am a member of the Committee of National Administration and Security. I'm also a member of a Committee on Powers and Privilege, and another committee called Rules and Procedure.
So how comes 3? Is it because there's a lot of space?
Apart from admin and national security, the other 2 committees are basically ad hoc committees, which I think is not a problem. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are so many other members who are also members of 3 or 2 or more than 2 committees members. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's then begin with the issue that we did see yesterday, what happened in the National Assembly, and at least 4 members have been ejected out of the leadership of those 4 committees, so various committees in Parliament. We expect another round of voting. Were you surprised with the way things happened? Let's begin with the Labour Committee, for example.
I will look at it in 2 perspectives. One is that I think it's the prerogative of the party leaders of a political party to organize and strategize on how the party will conduct itself in the National Assembly. And the disadvantage that maybe, whether disadvantage or the advantage that Jubilee has, is that our party leader and his deputy is the president and his deputy. So at times when they want to give directions to the members of Parliament allied to their parties, and the Kenyans and the members of the opposition begins to read too much. However, I feel myself in person that they are going too far in terms of what is perceived to be the interference with the conduct and the affairs of the National Assembly. To me, what I think they should do is that they should just give their marching orders to the Chief Whip and the Leader of Majority and the Secretary General of the party, mm-hmm. because the President and his deputy, they portrays that national stature, and I think as a party, being in a political contest with our opponents, we should not be giving our opponents ammunition to fire at ourselves. Mm-hmm. For example, I think a committee of about 16 members, there is no point of even the Leader of Majority and the Chief Whip even to attend and kind of dictate and say that this is how you are going to vote. Mm-hmm. To me, I think once you speak with the members of Parliament, the members of that committee, and if you have very valid reasons as to why we should not vote in the particular chairman or why we should vote this particular person, I think that is important. The people, members of Parliament in their own Senate capacity, if at all whatever you have, the reasons that you are giving are enough, they will vote as per your wish. But I mean, joining the committee, dictating, overruling that you have to vote through acclamation as opposed to the secret ballot or anything else, I think that is intimidation. Mm-hmm. As much as I support the ouster in the interest of regional balance, but the way it's being done is not properly correct.
So you say, and for the record, Mheshimiwa Barasa here is a Jubilee elected member of parliament, and those who are ejected out of those particular leadership positions, Alfred Keter had been elected the chairperson of the Labour Committee. We also have James Gakuya, who was to come to this show until he bowed out the last minute, with Embakasi not member of parliament as well. He had been elected as the chairperson of the Broadcasting and Library Committee. And we also have Silas Teren, who is a Moiben member of parliament, who had been elected as the Agriculture Committee chairperson. And lastly, we had Kangogo Bowen, who is Marakwet East member of parliament, and he has been elected as the vice chairperson of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee. When you talk about dictatorship, that those who argue that we seem to have some degree of violation when it comes to the rule of separation of powers, that legislature or parliament as it were ought to be an independent body from the executive. But when you cite dictatorship, there are those who argue that that's what exactly is happening, that we don't have respect for separation of powers.
I think the concern of some of the members of parliament is that I think meritocracy and the regional balancing is a matter of which comes first. And to me, I think meritocracy comes first, and then regional balance comes second. You understand that, for example, the Committee on Agriculture, the most agricultural parts of this country are maybe Rift Valley and Western. That's where we have, you know, what we call a Kenyan agricultural food basket. And I think getting a chair who comes from Northeastern, I think to me doesn't make sense. I doubt whether the proposed honorable member from Wajir understands the process of even planting maize and the challenges that are affecting farmers, the cane farmers, maize farmers in parts of. I doubt.
But he lives in the country.
But you see, we are talking about practical things that affect farmers. And that can only be understood by a practicing farmer. I know that most of the people from the pastoralist communities, they are businessmen, and they do business, either importing sugar, importing maize, or those kind of things. And I think that ought to have been looked into. Nonetheless, in democracy, they say the majority will have their way. And I think what we need to do, we need to mature to a level where that when you want members of parliament to behave in a particular way, just give yourself the reasons, justify your position to them, and then you leave for them to make a decision whether they will vote the way you want it or not the way you want it. I think that is the independence of parliament that need to be safeguarded. That said, I also want to defend the president and his deputy to some extent. That it's common practice all over the world in emerging democratic frontiers that party leaders organize their parties moving forward. They try to strategize together. They engage various experts on governance, on policy making, and they will want also to share the same with the members of their party. After all, they are the one who carries the broader vision of the party. So when the president tries to execute that role and his deputy, members of the opposition and the Kenyans, they will begin to look at it in terms of them infringing on the independence of parliament. But they are also party leaders.
But if they are party leaders, and you did rightly put it, that majority must have their way. And one will argue that majority of members of parliament, for that matter, in these particular committees, had their way in electing Alfred Keter, in electing James Gakuya, in electing Silas Teren. So when you come and curtail the majority, then what will you be saying?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that the president and his deputies' direct involvement into sorting out the mess in these committees, it points out into the failure by the leader of majority and the chief whip, because these are the fellows who are supposed to marshal members to vote in a particular way, and either enforcing the party position, not by using force, but by educating members, supporting what their decision in terms of this is the person that we want to vote for. And I think that's why I said I also faulted the manner in which it's being done. What they could have done is that through the chief whip and the leader of majority, to be able to sit down the committee members, lobby for the preferred choice, and allow them to make the independent choice. And I'm even sure that when elections will be called, you may even have some of the people who are rejected coming in.
I want to ask that we expect, according to the standing orders, we expect another round of voting within the next 14 days.
Yes.
And if that's the case, what happens if you go to the polls, or members of the, say, Labour Committee go to the polls, and during the elections, Alfred Keter is re-elected as the chairperson of that particular committee, because he seems to have expressed interest that he wants to still compete for that position?
That will depend on two factors. One, we have a court ruling that is expected to come out today. Hearing and determination will be coming up today. You remember that all those chairmen who defied the party position had been de-whipped. They've been removed from those committee lists, but they went to court. So the matter is coming up for hearing and determination today. So if the court is going to rule in their favor that the party made a mistake in de-whipping them, and if they are going to continue serving as committee members, then they are also eligible to contest again. And I think if they are going to win, I think it will be a good lesson to learn that while you support regional balancing, you must also glue it together with the ideologies. And you must also bring a person who really understands his or her roles with regard to being the chairman of a specific parliamentary committee. And that such kind of leaders, such members of parliament who are proposed by the party to be chairmen and the vice chairmen, they must also be equal to the task in terms of understanding what the roles are, and they should not just sit down and sleep. They should lobby, they should campaign, they should sell the agenda to all the members of that committee so that they can be elected.
When you talk about the question of the matter coming up in court today for hearing and possible determination, one will then see a situation where we are talking about the question of prejudice here, because the 4 MPs were being de-whipped from these various committees at a time this is a matter of or a subject of litigation. In itself, a violation of the law, you think?
It's not, because what the court did is that after the members were de-whipped, they went to court, and the court stayed. It stayed the decision of the chief whip to throw them out of the committees until the matter is heard and determined. So the matter is coming up today. The court never said that it never prevented those committees from any further deliberations, whether by way of meeting and the members. As long as the activities of a committee is not curtailed, is not stayed, then any vote of confidence that comes from a member will easily go through.
But then the question of vote of no confidence was a question that is a subject of litigation, because these members seem to be unhappy with the way their leadership is being fought.
You know, the court was very specific. The court will grant you the prayers depending on what you have asked for. So the prayers which the Alfred Keter and the rest asked for was to stay the apparent ejection from the members, the whipping from the membership committee list by the party. So that is what is up for determination in the court.
Mm-hmm.
Not they had not foresaw any vote of confidence coming in. So maybe if they will have known that a vote of confidence will come in, they will have maybe sought the order also to prevent any further disciplinary actions against them going forward until the matter is heard and determined by the court of law.
Mm-hmm. And so these MPs have been de-whipped from these various committees because of vote of no confidence. So where is lack of confidence that, or what is this they're lacking that led to their being ousted, you think?
Of course, you see, when a party takes a position, that we are going to vote for this person as the chairman and this as the vice chairman. And of course, they were told not to forward their nominations for considerations for the purposes of being voted in as chairmen of their various committees, and they defied the party position. Then the whole things put together makes the party not to have confidence in them in terms of this is not what we wanted as a party, this is not the party position, and when you want to remove a chair who was even legally elected, you must look for various ways. Bringing in a vote of confidence being one of it, de-whipping that member, that's another way of removing that person from being the chair of a parliamentary select committee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a question of the modalities of voting, and we saw that become a heated debate yesterday among members of the Labour Committee. And do we go, you know, acclamation, do we go the secret way, and is it a national that Jubilee, for example, may be using so that if Honorable Baraza wants to vote, you cut up your hand or you do an acclamation so that we see who is this that is bettering us? And is it the best approach? And what does the standing orders say regarding the same?
I think the members can agree before they commence voting on the system of voting which they will use. In most cases, we've been using acclamation is allowed, even secret ballot is also allowed. So it depends on how the consensus that the committee members will come up with. But to me, I think it was it's not very necessary. Like they say in English that you don't respond to a mosquito bite with a hammer. I think Alfred Keter, Member of Parliament, is, I mean, if you want to oust him, you can simply do so by one meeting over a cup of tea, and you tell the members what are the reasons why you don't want him to be the chairman of that committee, and what are the reasons that you are supporting this Member of Parliament from MWANJE that you think is a better place to be the chairman of maybe agriculture or labor or whichever way. You don't have to appear that the whole system of government is rattled, that the leader of majority, the chief whip, has to come and sit down during the committee proceedings, that the whole president and his deputy can summon the 16 members to come around. I mean, these are things which you sort it out in an SMS. You whip your members. I mean, if you have enough reasons. So what is happening now, specifically in Labour Committee, is a complete differences between an individual supported by the party in terms of regional balance and somebody else who has maybe an ideology or something else. Because you remember that the Labour Committee is very critical in providing solutions for a number of government institutions that have been rocked by demonstrations for the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. So I think, to me, it's very, very, very important. It needs a sober person. It needs a person who is going to provide the leadership in a transparent manner, in a way of interrogating the matters, looking at the reason, the complete root cause analysis at why those industrial actions have not been resolved by those who are in position to resolve them for very many years.
So if I listen to you very well, you say the Labour Committee needs a sober person. Do you insinuate Keter is not a sober person?
To me, as a person, Alfred Keter foots the bill of a politician. You know, a politician is a kind of a person who will provide leadership. I have not said that, I've said it needs, but I haven't said where I support the man from which the party wants or the Alfred Keter. Of course, I'm not a member of that committee, so these are just my own personal views. Alfred Keter is a kind of person, he may have his own weaknesses, but in terms of confronting issues, I mean, to me, I will have, if the members express confidence in him being the chair, I don't see the problem. Because he's being sacrificed because of regional balancing. Unfortunately, is a Kalenjin, and we have maybe so many other Kalenjins who are at the helm of various committees. Mm-hmm. So in terms of that, I will accept, but in terms of his capability, I think the young man is capable of leading the Labour Committee.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about this question of the whole question of regional balancing and inclusivity, how will you rate the representation in these various committees of National Assembly, or if I may call them parliaments? Do you feel like there's inclusivity and regional, balance in the way they were constituted, including the three committees that you're a member?
I think what is happening now is that the so-called communities which were marginalized, I mean, they are virtually taking over everything. If you go and you do your statistics, you will find out that the communities which were previously, maybe in the last 10 years, which were marginalized, just the same way the girl child has overtaken the boy child, because we put too much focus on the girl child and forgotten about the boy child. That is actually what is happening now. Look at, for example, the pastoralists. They occupy very many positions in government, and they took positively the fact that they were marginalized to position themselves in every system to bring equity or inclusivity seemed to favor them. And I think it's high time we need to look into this matter very, very, very seriously. And I think also what is important is that Parliament is going to be judged not on inclusivity and whether we have achieved regional balance or whatever way, but we are going to be judged on performance. Performance is going to be more important. Kenyans have no problem if 3 people from this one particular community occupies senior positions. They have no problem with that if they deliver. They will have a problem if positions are shared equally among the 43 tribes of this country, but again they don't deliver. So what is important that should come first is meritocracy and a commitment to provide service to Kenyans. Yeah.
And so as we talk about meritocracy and the provision of services to Kenyans, one will argue, how will you rate the 12th Parliament so far in terms of execution of its mandates? Because there's a feeling that the 12th Parliament is so much focused on non-issues, sometimes sideshows, as opposed to, serving Kenyans.
I think it's very early to purport to judge the performance of the 12th Parliament because we are yet to begin operating at full optimum. You remember we had a lot of issues around the re-election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. We had situations where the opposition members of Parliament were boycotting the sittings. So we haven't begun executing serious businesses. And for your information, most of the petitions that were received from Kenyans, either in light of the amendments of some laws that are very important, they have to go through the committees of Parliament. And it's only by now that we are still concluding the formation of various committees. Most committees now, they are doing what we call induction. Is going to go up to early February, so that when the committees of the House will be fully constituted, then they will begin to interrogate all those petitions and then bring recommendations to the whole committee of the House. So that is when you can now say that you can either rate whether we've done well or we are deteriorating.
But do you think those committees have the capacity? Because I hear you talk about the question of interrogating, for example, petitions, and when you talk about powers and privileges committee, or rules and procedure, and all those kind of committees, do you have the ability as committee members to interrogate some of these key issues that, Kenyans are after, seeing them sorted out? Because the argument has been, we seem to have tyrannical tendencies in these committees, and that it's more likely that in most cases we have majority Jubilee members of Parliament taking control of those committees, and that you are simply going to rubber stamp what the executive is after. So we don't expect much from those committees, you think? I
think at the committee level, the issue of tyranny will have very little impact because, one, the chairman of the committee is just to provide leadership. and act as the spokesperson of the committees. But in terms of coming up with the recommendations, an all-inclusive process where each and every member has to give their views, and matters are interrogated on merit and on importance to the Kenyans. And also, apart from the report, there is no way the report of a committee of the House can be implemented without first being adopted by the House. So we'll have the committee of the whole House. So whether you say this is our position at the committee, but the whole House will have to debate, approve, make amendments.
But where Jubilee has a majority?
Yeah, but at least in the National Assembly, on matters that touches, I want to give you an example of how this House is independent. Mm-hmm. When the names of the members to constitute the Parliamentary Service Commission were tabled on the floor of the House, they moved from both of the House. There are some names that we were not comfortable, and we didn't approve them. We shelved that debate until this year when we will resume. So in terms of the independence of Parliament, whether the members of Parliament from a minority party or majority parties, at times we have some matters that unifies us, matters that affect the livelihood of Kenyans. I mean, we put aside our party differences, and we usually unite as a House, either to reject or to approve.
That's a good example, Mheshimiwa, when you talk about the question of those committees. But let's look at it from a macro perspective. In the name of, currently President Uhuru Kenyatta is constituting his cabinet, and we know that he has named at least, retained 6 CSS, the current ones, and nominated 3 others, some of which we have seen leaders even in Marsabit having issues with some of the nominees. I'm just trying to imagine, here's a situation where those names comes to the vetting committee of Parliament, where more likely Jubilee has majority. Do you think meritocracy can, triumph over party affiliations? So that Mheshimiwa Barasa says, I'm a Jubilee elected member of Parliament, but on this nominee I'm going to say no, because I feel like there's no meritocracy, and say I'm going to reject this nominee. Do you see that happen in the current Parliament?
You know, we are independent. I am a Jubilee member of Parliament, but I'm not happy the way the process of ousting the acts of Afli Kiteri had been executed. I took an issue with the way the Minister for Education was transferring teachers from this place to this other place. So when it comes to the people of KIMILILI constituency, I think their interests is given a priority by myself ahead of the government position or the position of the party. So what I'm just simply saying that I'm not the only one. We have very many people who are like-minded and who are independent, and we're going to interrogate issues on meritocracy. Now, 2, when you talk about that Ukur Yatan had been nominated, and
actually has been nominated. I was just citing an example.
And the member of his communities are not happy with his nominations. Because of the previous governments, people think that when your own is in government, you benefit more. And maybe failure for the people of Marsabit, either to have confidence in Ukur Yatan, has got nothing to do with his suitability to serve in that docket as a cabinet secretary. So when Parliament looks at individual members on whether to approve or not, we are not going to look at whether this person was rejected as governor, whether he lost elections or anything else. We are going to look at the suitability of that person based on integrity, based on his academic backgrounds, his experience, and the way he will respond to the questions which the Committee on Appointments will pose in terms of what is his vision on that particular docket. So those are the issues which we look into. At times you may have your people rejecting you because you are in the wrong party. They may reject you because of a few things here and there. Maybe you come from a smaller clan, not the way they wanted. Even some politicians who will see you as maybe they think you will come back again after 5 years. Again, to unseat them, will also want to block your nomination to ensure that you are miserable, that you face out completely in the political scene of this country. So these are not, as Parliament, we are not going to be sucked up into those kind of non-issues. We are going to look at the track record of a person, the academic credentials of a person. You may have failed as a governor of a particular region during your 5-year term, but because maybe you are a banker and you have more experience in prudent financial management systems. So if they are going to appoint you, the CS for Treasury, for example, then we are sure you are going to work very well. Maybe you failed terribly as a senator of a particular region, but your background is in security. You can be able to bring in some of the security, the policies and systems that will ensure Kenyans are safe. Then you are suitable to serve as a CS for Interior. So we are going to interrogate the suitability of these candidates, with narrowing down to the specific docket that they have been nominated to handle, and we'll look at it vis-a-vis the problem that docket has, have been facing for the last 5 or 10 years.
Is Mheshimiwa DIDMUS being an idealist as opposed to being a realist? Because there are those who will argue that there's a precedent that has been set, especially with the 11th Parliament, and that some of the things you are saying, the question of interrogating, be it even at a committee level, and we are having, say, an issue of national interest, that the President indicates that party affiliations has always triumphed over meritocracy. You seem to suggest that the 12th Parliament will overcome those hurdles?
I think if you look at the statistics of the 12th Parliament, you will understand that 70% of the members are new. So the high turnover of members of Parliament indicates that the Kenyans were not happy the way the members of Parliament in the 11th Parliament conducted themselves. And out of 70% of the new members of Parliament, we have about 30% of members of Parliament who are fairly new. So we are looking at things with clear mind of lessons learned. The turnover of members of Parliament, from 11th Parliament to 12th Parliament, those who went home. And we understand what are some of the things that makes Kenyans unhappy with ourselves. And we are not going to make the same mistake. We are not willing to be one-term members of Parliament. We want to serve Kenyans at least for a period of minimum 10 years. And we are going to focus on real issues that affect Kenyans. We are going to interrogate the agendas and the issues that affect Kenyans using lessons learned from the previous government, from the previous Parliament, so that we can improve things going forward. So I can tell you for free that when we are going to resume, you are going to experience the real independence of the 12th Parliament. And this is not new. You remember even in the 11th Parliament, when the whole country was debating about the so-called draconian security bills. You remember by then the leader of majority, Eden Duale, teamed up with the other members of the other Kenyans in resisting those bills, because apparently they had targeted some particular communities as terrorists. So I think it's not new. At times when you oppose the government directive because of the interests of your people, you should not be labeled a rebel, or rather you should not be whipped, because as members of Parliament, we have our own ways on how we campaigned. We understand the expectations of the people who put us in office, and at times the government's decision, the government's directive, the party position may be in a way that either it's not in line with the interests of the community. So.
And you say that you're going to speak for Wanjiku. You are going to articulate issues that affect Kenyans and demonize those that they don't want. And some of the issues that Kenyans have been so, passionate about is the question of opposing the pay hike for MPs. Apparently, the judiciary just stayed, the salary issue, so that now you are receiving your former salaries, not what SRC had proposed, is it not? As members of Parliament, have you taken issue with, say, the judiciary saying, by saying that, listen, we are fighting with the question of wage bill. Why do you want us to go back to our old salaries?
Myself, I would want the wage bill to be to be as low as possible. But any attempt to reduce salaries of a state officer or anybody must be in accordance with the law.
And that's what SRC did?
And also, we need also to make the amendments to the law that when government begins to saving money, this money must go to a particular account and fund some specific functions which are very, very, very important. For example, you can say we are saving, reducing salaries, reducing wastages, so that we can increase the money meant for bursaries for needy students in this country, or maybe we are saving to ensure that we buy more equipment in our hospitals. To me, that is more robust, as opposed to, like I've given examples before. It's like a husband saving money, telling your wife that you should not go to the salon, just go to the kinyozi to keep your hair short. But again, you are going to embezzle the same funds with the mpango account or somewhere else. So it defeats the very purpose, the very essence of savings. So, like I've said, I support the reduction of salaries, but that must be done in accordance with the law, and the matter is is in the court of law, and I should not even belabor more on it, because that would be prejudice.
It would be prejudice. Yeah. But what you're saying is SRC somehow violated the law in reducing the salary.
I haven't said they violated the law, but in the manner which they did is being challenged. So you can only say that they violated the law if the court will determine, because that is the court is the only institution that has the power to determine whether they followed or they violated the law. But I've just said that the process which they followed to reduce the salaries is being challenged. So we'll wait until the verdict of the court comes out, and as a law-abiding citizen, as a lawmaker, I will be guided accordingly by the decision of the court.
I like the way you have heard that particular issue. But let's go back to the question of meritocracy. Earlier on, you did indicate that you're going to, stand for merit. And you cited the question of the transfer of school principals. Now that you are talking about meritocracy, what did you do when you felt like the transfer of school principals was not done in order?
Of course, you see, as a member of parliament, I have the opportunity either to read a statement on the floor of the House, or maybe sponsor an adjournment motion so that the whole House can debate, interrogate all this matter of transfers. But the matter came in when we were already on recess. And as a member of parliament, I will just give my own advice or my own opinion as to whether I support or not, and why I do not support. And these issues of delocalization of schools, which I made my voice known. But it seems Matiang'i had already engaged a non-reverse gear. And I wouldn't have gone to begin ejecting those principals from schools because they are Kenyans. And ejecting them from schools will kind of bring fuel to these tribal ethnicities. For example, you can eject out a Luo principal in maybe in Nyeri, and the Luos will also gang up to eject Kikuyu, whom they think comes from Nyeri again. So I think these things they should be properly addressed. And what I was saying is that we need to encourage dialogue. Even when the community resists a particular directive, a particular principle, I think the Ministry of Education should have dialogue, as opposed to this chest thumping and doing things in a dictatorial manner. You got to give dialogue a chance.
So let's go back to the question of committees then. Assuming that within the 14 days we go back to the elections and the same committees settle for the same leadership that was de-whipped, what's next for the 12th Parliament? And do you see this perhaps interfere with your legislative agenda?
I think, yes, it may interfere with the legislative agenda in some way, because ideally what the party should do is that if they attempt to ensure that things are done in a particular manner and they are unable, then they should be quick to read the mood of the members. in terms of why are they defying the government position or the party position, and then they should listen to them. And I would want to appreciate that the party leader and the deputy party leader, we've had meetings previously before all together, but I think even such meetings should be centered around the committee levels, so that we're able to have the free interactings and the exchanging of the views. You know, when you put more than 130 members of parliament into a particular auditorium and then you are discussing issues, you may not have much time. This means that you may have a number of members who will have their views, but they have no chance actually to air out and iron out. So I think we need to have smaller working groups to be able to interrogate their party positions, the suggested party positions or suggested government positions, before agreeing all over that, yes, we are going to support this position as a party, either on the floor of the House.
And as we bring this to an end, because our time is apparently up, and this is your debut appearance on Good Morning Kenya, let me give you an opportunity. What should the people of Kimilili expect from Mheshimiwa DIDMUS Baraza for the next 4 years?
Yeah, thank you very much. What I want to tell the people of Kimilili is first to thank them for supporting me for the last 4 months since they elected me into the National Assembly. And like what I've begun, I have both my own personal blueprint, which I'm already implementing. I have begun by phasing out garage thatched houses and replacing them with the iron sheets thatched houses. The process is about 95% complete. And after that, I'm going to ensure we will move into sanitation. We will ensure that every home has a toilet. Apart from also ensuring the robust management of the CDF funds, which of course its expenditure is clearly defined by CDF Act in terms of building schools and investing in security. And from there also move towards ensuring that we have a water bottling plant, which will be owned by the community. This water bottling plant, the machines have already arrived. What we are doing now is feasibility studies and approval by NEMA and a number of government agencies. So you have, and like I said before, that this water bottling plant, we are not going to drill water from anywhere, or we are not going to bottle water from the rivers. What we'll be doing, we will be bottling water which we will be buying from the people of Kimilili constituency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At least I gave you that opportunity because this is a debut appearance, and I want to appreciate your coming, by the way, on this particular show. And we want to wish you well on your legislative agenda after the next 4 years, because from where I sit, it's about 4 years. Yeah. We will call you back and interrogate whether you did fulfill those particular promises to the people of Kimilili constituency. Thank you for getting time to be with us on Good Morning Kenya today. We had expected James Gakuya, Embakasi, North Member of Parliament, and Tom Odega, but due to unavoidable circumstances, they could not make it. But at least Mheshimiwa has put some of the issues that we were to discuss into perspective. DIDMUS Baraza is a Kimilili Member of Parliament. He was elected on a Jubilee Party ticket in an area many think is an opposition stronghold. I'll be discussing with him sometimes later on this particular program. What were the secrets that he used to try to ensure that he clinches that seat? On behalf of the entire production and technical crew, my name is Martin MWANJE, and on behalf of Safina Cheng and Samuel Joroge, let's do this again tomorrow early in the morning from 6 all the way to 9. And remember, tomorrow is Entertainment Thursday. A lot is lined up for you. In the meantime, do enjoy the rest of the programming. Bye-bye for now.